Hello everyone, this is Ronnie from YouTube's, and we're doing a video here. This channel is on raw food stuff and everything. If you want to subscribe you can, and like the video if you like it and all that stuff. But let me talk about salt. And this video, I'm going to realise, is not a very scientific video, apart from that we are recommended to cut down on the amount of salt that we eat. That's the only good science that I've got in this video, really, that almost universally we're told to cut down on salt. We all know what salt is, we all know that virtually everyone consumes it, and we all know it's almost impossible to find anything without salt. Salt is something that has been a preservative of food for centuries, thousands of years, who knows how far it goes back. We can go into the history of how important it was. The Romans were like paid in salt, that's where the word salary comes from salt and whatever. What else about salt? It's actually, there's places in Europe, maybe throughout the world, but in Europe there are places that were based on salt mines. Salzburg. Now, maybe not Salzburg, but maybe I'm just making that one up. But there's definitely other places. That one sounds like it's Salzburg. There's more I say that, I don't even know that's a real place, but Salzburg. Other places that have certain things in the name indicate salt mines. The Celtics were salt miners as well. Were involved in as a group were involved in salt mining. So salt was mined. It wasn't, interestingly enough, taken out of the sea. Now, in the raw thing, and so anyway, let's talk about salt. So salt's become a part of life, really. And we have all these phrases like salt of the earth and all this, kind of to indicate something, I guess, sort of common and good and natural, substantial, whatever. And the funny thing is, and I believe this fully, that if you took the salt out of any restaurant, in fact, if we took it out of every restaurant in the world, there would very quickly be no one eating in those restaurants. Salt is so fundamental to the flavour of cooked food and the flavour of most foods. It is essential. Without salt, there is no flavour. Salt doesn't add flavour, salt is the flavour. Salt does not add flavour, it is the flavour. There is often no flavour without the salt being added to it, with a lot of foods. Salt is something that actually on its own is something you would spit out if it was in your mouth. Just the same way that if you had sand or something, or anything like that, any rocks or whatever, you would spit it out. Seawater, you would spit it out. If you take in seawater, your desire is to spit it out. You don't go, this is a nice savoury beverage. You don't do that. You spit it out, obviously. I say obviously, but maybe some people don't, but I'm pretty sure everyone does. It's a natural instinct. Despite this, we get a lot of people sort of claiming that salt is a natural thing. In the raw vegan natural health world, there's always been various places where salt has been, it's various companies that have sold healthy salts, healthier versions of salt. And I don't personally believe that any of these things are I don't personally believe any of these things are healthy salts. Healthy salts. Healthy salts. So Celtic sea salt, Himalayan sea salt, pink sea salt, black salt, or whatever. They're not all sea salts, but they're all different salts. I don't believe any of these are fundamentally different from salt. They might have a nicer story to it. It's unlikely that it's unlikely that this is safer or anything than just average salt. It's really unlikely that there's any kind of thing better about it or safer. So any of the problems that might be associated with salt are associated with those salts as well. And people want to eat salt because it makes things taste better at the end of the day. It does make almost everything taste better, including fruit. People will add salt to fruit in some parts of the world. It seems to enhance flavour. I don't know exactly why that works. I don't know exactly why that works. But as I say, on its own, we don't like it. Added to things, we enjoy it. So it's hard to say. Now, some people also say to me, well, the animals in the forest and everything, they go for miles and they try and find a salt lick. Yeah, we've seen examples of that, but it's not really something that we can. It's not really something we can give a lot of credence to, I don't think. I don't really think it's something you can give a lot of credence to. That's my own personal opinion. I just think it's not something, where exactly are these salt licks? Or how are we meant to find them? How come I can't just go out and find one right now? So I don't want to lick a rock. I don't want to lick the ground. Anything like that. So to me, salt was probably not really part of our diet if we go far enough back. It became a much bigger part of the diet when people were using it to preserve food. And the fact that it preserves food, I'm not sure what that means. Does that mean it basically kills the bacteria? Does that mean that it takes away the moisture? I'm not sure which element of it that it does, but it certainly stops certain foods from going off. And obviously particularly used with meat, and accompanies meat all the time, because without salt, meat has no flavour. Dairy products, cheese has no flavour without salt. It would be impossible. You would basically gag trying to eat cheese without salt. Butter, you would gag. Anything with oil in it, without salt, you would probably gag. Without salt, bread would be almost impossible to eat. You'd have to add a lot of moisture to it. It would be so dry. The addition of salt, even with salt, really, the reason that salt really stimulates your saliva, and that helps to produce more saliva to digest it. But bread is incredibly dry, and we don't have the enzymes that break it down. So, but salt seems to help a little bit in making you create more saliva. But just all of these things, without salt, you're just like, I've done all these experiments when I was going raw and changing. I tried all these things with and without salt. I made bread. I actually made my own bread and didn't have any salt in it. Just like impossible to eat. Like, just not very pleasant. And you can't, you can eat these things, but you add like vegetables to it, you add tomato sauce to it, you add things like that, which are kind of naturally have more flavour to them and have more savoury flavour to them. So you can do these things, which is quite a good point. What would you do instead of salt? To me, a large part of the savoury part of my diet is tomatoes, and I usually pair them with greens and lettuce and things like that. There is these, just for a little free product placement, I don't know if this is probably the wrong way around, but that's Mrs. Dash. Shout out to Mrs. Dash. Pretty fantastic salt-free seasonings. I've not used them that much. I've had these quite a while. Maybe I'll use them tonight. I don't know. I've not used them that much. I enjoy them. They're salt-free. They have like lemon in them and stuff, and I don't know what they've got to replace salt. They've got lots of stuff: onions, spices, black pepper, chili pepper, parsley, celery seed, basil, bay, marjoram. It seems like a lot of stuff. Oregano, Savoy, thyme, cayenne. I don't know. Do they just go to the factory where the herbs are and take all the leftovers and dehydrate them? And citric acid, oil of lemon. I don't know. I guess that's what they do. It feels like that's what they do. They take all the leftover herbs, dehydrate them, break them all up, and it's just left with a pile of stuff that you can then add oil of lemon to, and then and then sprinkle on your food. I don't know. But those are really good. What are some of the issues with having too much salt? Well, apparently it raises your blood pressure. I think it's not so good for the kidneys. for people that have kidney problems. They're told not to consume too much salt. But as someone that's looking for, experimenting with the highest levels of diet and health and nutrition, if that's something you're kind of interested in experimenting with, and how the body should function, salt to me has some negative side effects and things like that. And when I first gave up salt, I had such a strong reaction to giving up salt that I knew something was happening. I knew there was something extremely interesting happening to my body. I gave up salt, and I actually had cold and flu symptoms. That kind of, whatever you call it. Yeah, like a cold and flu symptoms sort of thing. Took a few days off work. Literally took a few days off work, and then I started feeling really nice and amazing and really fluidy. I don't know what the word is. I felt like moist skin and all this stuff. I felt kind of moistish, and I had this weird day where I got really high. I can never explain this, but I got really high out of the blue. This is just from giving up salt, and I got really high for ages. And I don't take drugs, so I don't really know what it feels like to be high, but I was really high in my own estimation. And yeah, I thought, okay, there's something good about giving up salt. So it's your own personal experience and whatever. I know some raw vegans that still consume salt on a pretty frequent basis. Mike Vlacity doesn't see it as a problem. He has a little bit of salt all the time. I personally want to stay away from it. I feel it's addictive is an issue. I don't like some of the symptoms. I get itchiness if I eat salt. I get itchiness. Over the last 8 years, most of that time I've ate no salt. If I start to include salt in my diet, I feel like my dietary choices go down. I might start having kale chips and looking for things like that, And I don't really want to have snacky things all the time and look for savoury, salty things. I would rather not do that. I'd rather just have the fruits, vegetables, and I could dehydrate some stuff, but I don't really do that all that much. I really haven't been in a very I've been in a very simple phase for the last while. Very low fat, very small amount of stuff. Not even used the Mrs. Dash, not even made salad dressings and things like that. Been very simple recently. I enjoy that. I enjoy a salt-free life. I don't really need salt. In saying that, I will have it now and again, especially if I was at a raw restaurant or something, which is rare because we don't have any in this country, basically. So, if I was at a raw restaurant, maybe in another country, if someone made a recipe and added salt in it, I would just say to myself, okay, I'm going to enjoy the fact that I know it's going to taste good. I know it's going to taste good, so I'll have it. I will indulge in it. But I do know there's going to be a result. I'm going to feel something, some kind of weirdness, or I'm just going to feel that itchiness that I get. I get this weird itchiness. So I personally would choose to give up salt. I think that you should go towards giving up salt completely, and even if you're still on a cooked diet, you can still give up salt. You don't have to have salt in your diet. I think you will have a benefit from not having salt in any diet. And how would you give up salt? I would recommend that you sort of, probably like a lot of things, I would recommend you cut down on it. And the best way to cut down on it is probably cut down on the foods that include a lot of salt. So you want to cut out all the processed foods and maybe make your own versions of them without salt or with less salt. And you would do that for a while and you would get used to having a bit less salt, and then you would maybe start cutting out having maybe just one meal a day when you have salt. And then you cut down to just doing that a few times a week or something, and then eventually you cut down to have a day off salt. have a couple of days off salt, have 3 or 4 days off salt, but watch out, you might get the cold and flu symptoms. So you might want to take it slow, and then, eventually take longer periods off it, and replace it with good things. You can use the Mrs. Dash. It won't give you the same impact, but you can use it. If you get super into tomatoes, then that can replace it. And I don't know, there's not a lot of things. Lemon is basically, adding lemon is a good way of replacing a kind of saltiness, kind of. It's not really, but it gives you something. So, yeah, try and move away from salt, at least for an experiment. For those of you who need to cut out salt, you can do it. There are other ways of having savoury, but listen, people will tell you things like, when I stopped eating salt, I all of a sudden started to taste all the amazing savoury flavours of the green vegetables. To me, that's rubbish. Like, I still don't like really the taste of greens. I don't think they're salty. I don't think celery is that appealing, as a salty thing. So I'm not that big into that stuff. But yeah, salt is something that I've chosen to give up. You might see this little kind of boil thing here. I believe this has happened because of my consistent overconsumption of tomatoes, and eventually it's catching up on me and giving me a little bit of a heads up that I'm having too much. So I'm going to cut back for a while, I guess. But anyway, yeah, salt, that's my position on salt, I guess. So thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in another video. I've got the Fruit Fest in a couple of days. If you're going, I'll see you there. I'm sure we'll have a lot of debates and discussion, and we'll talk about a lot of interesting things. And if you want to make a video there, we'll make a video. If you've got an interesting story, we can talk more. And I'll see you in the next video.